Hello and welcome to Women's World on Global Television. Women's World is a dynamic television program that celebrates, inform and empower women across all walks of life. It's a program that highlights stories of resilience, leadership, achievement while tackling pressing issues that affect women locally and globally. I am your host, Kike Lomo Okeri, and with me is my ever vibrant co-host Anita Patrick. Welcome on the show.
Well, it's amazing. Today's an amazing day.
Yeah, it is.
We have a lot to talk about Women's World. Women are really making the marks
Exactly.
in all fields of life, and we have a lot to tell you today on this edition of Women's World. So stick to your screen. Don't go anywhere.
So today we explore a powerful shift in our society, the growing movement of women claiming their financial independence through home ownership across Nigeria and beyond. More women are not only breaking barriers in businesses and leadership, but also stepping into real estate space, securing homes of their own. This isn't just about having roof over one's head. It is about redefining economic power, creating securities for families, and building generational wealth. In today's discussion, we'll be examining the challenges women face in owning properties, the opportunities that exist, and how home ownership is shaping a new narrative of independence and empowerment. Right after the break, stay with us. Welcome back. Thank you for staying with us as we unpack the story of women turning houses into symbol of strength, security, and self-determination. Joining us is an expert, advocate, and real-life woman owner sharing their journey and insights, architect Estina Ene. She is the founder, CEO, Legacy Youth and Women Foundation. Good afternoon, Ma.
Good afternoon. Thanks for having me.
All right, Ma. A quick one. Why is home ownership considered a key indicator of economic power and independence for women?
Yeah, home ownership is, as we all know, a fundamental human need. You have to have a home before you can do anything meaningful. If you don't have a home, it affects your mental health, it affects your productivity. You're not able to achieve much. So home ownership is key. We advocate that women should, do all they can with the available resources and available assistance that we offer to own homes, because with that you create generational wealth and stability.
Okay, historically, what challenges have women faced in acquiring properties in Nigeria and globally?
Well, historically in Nigeria, we know that women are not exactly supposed to own homes traditionally, but things are changing. Things are changing, thank God for that. Historically, it's only the men that inherit, and so things are evolving. And women are beginning to know that, they have to put things in place to make sure that they don't fall victims of tradition.
Well, there's a whole lot happening. It's good to have you join us on this particular program. You're an expert and you understand what it means to own properties, how it means to be there as a person in the real estate business. Let's come to that. The men seem to dominate in their own understanding. And I like the fact that I'm coming from the perspective of where advocacy has gone for women to rights and the need to understand their own space and strengths and stability in whatever they do. Let's look at the legal terms of all of this. Owning a home changed the social and economic status of women in society. What are the legal provisions or policies that should guide a woman to understand her rights and capacity when it comes to accessibility to landed property?
Women face challenges because of, like I said before, the traditions and all that. But we have the Constitution, which gives women equal rights,
Okay.
and it's against discrimination. So women just need to key into it and go for whatever assistance they can get from NGOs, from the Federal Mortgage Bank,
Okay.
National Housing Funds. So these are things that are in place legally for women to explore.
Okay, so I'm asking this because I look at the fact, let's come to our cultural norms as Nigerians. Let's look at typical ownership of property. Because if you look at where a spouse is missing or goes or dies in the process, women tend to face a lot of hardship. And I'm asking myself, where are the legal backings that should cover the woman as an umbrella or as a shield that you're able to labor from the onset with your partner and you build a house? And then at the long run, when the man passes away, or for instance, let me flip it this way to both gender, because I like to look at gender issues.
Yeah.
And then the man, let's say the woman passes away, the man can take his property, but in some cases when the woman is not well treated, the families will say, no, you can't go to our daughter's property. But the major pressure is usually on the woman. So let's understand, what provisions as you've done with your association, with your expertise, to help women enjoy that provision of owning their own homes, whether with a partner that built it together or as a person who is trying to save her neck from relatives who want to overshadow her from getting her cover over her roof, or her head, rather, not her roof.
Thank you for that question. It's a big issue, really, and it happens a lot of times that women, are not treated well when their husbands die in terms of property. Sometimes they are kicked out of the home that they built with their husbands, unfortunately. But there is a way out of it. There's a way out of it, and that means women should be more deliberate about putting things in place. Even the men, too, should be deliberate about putting things in place, because, nobody knows what will happen tomorrow. And so when a document, when the property is in the name of both spouses, and that's what it should be, really, but it's not so common in these climes, unfortunately. If the house is in the name of both the husband and the wife, when any one of them passes, there should be no problem. But what we find is that most times the woman's name is not on the property, and so any greedy in-law can come and start making claims. So from the onset, let's try and fix things and do things right. If we're building a house together as a family, as a unit, it shouldn't have one person's name. And then if that is the case, there won't be any problem when the husband passes on, the woman doesn't have a problem. But assuming that the woman's name is not there, we still have the legal system that I believe will support the woman and make sure that she gets what is rightfully hers.
Okay, so let me go through Nigerians' laws. There's a whole lot of laws that some women tend to not understand. But let's look at constitutional guarantees as Nigeria's 1999 constitution as amended. It says guarantees every citizen, regardless of gender, the right to acquire and own immovable property anywhere in the country. And this section 43 also says this means women have full legal rights to buy, inherit, or own land and houses, just like men. Why I'm trying this is because of understanding the customary issues that goes around women owning land. And then let's look at the Land Use Act 1978. It says, does not discriminate by gender. Women can apply for and hold statutory rights of occupancy, whether in marriage, because we also have the Marriage Act as well, which also talk about all that as well under the statutory Christian marriage. Say property acquired during marriage may be jointly owned, just like you mentioned. Courts increasingly recognize women's contributions, financial and non-financial, during divorce process settlements. That's for divorce cases. Because you tend to see where a lot of men tend to struggle with all of these things. So because some of them are probably naive or don't have the understanding, and it tends to affect them in all aspects of their life. So I'm looking at this legal rights that women understand how they flow. You are an architect, and I have friends who are architects who wants to understand this work, and it's not a woman's space or place to grow. But let's look at administration of estate laws. In many states, the law recognizes wives and daughters as beneficiaries in estate distribution. I don't know if you speak about that to women when they come to your field as a mentor to guide them. So talk to us about that mentorship thing you do for women to understand their legal rights to owning their own homes.
Yes, thank you for the question.
Yeah.
Yes, women have the right to own properties just like men, as the Constitution says.
Okay.
So we encourage them to go and just exercise your rights. We have the Renewed Hope social housing that is being advocated. I mean, that's actually in progress.
Okay.
The Federal Ministry of Housing and Urban Development, they are working on that program right now and just awaiting approval, presidential approval for the project to go on. So these are things that people can key into. The social housing, the vulnerable women, vulnerable communities are the beneficiaries of this social housing. And the Federal Ministry of Housing and Urban Development is working with the Ministry of Humanitarian and Poverty Alleviation towards this. So they identify the vulnerable people, and they are going to get these houses regardless of income.
Okay.
And then there's also the other program, which is for everybody. Renewed Hope housing program. Anybody can key into it. Wherever you're working, just make sure that you pay your deductions are being taken for that go into the National Housing Funds, and then with the Federal Mortgage Bank, you can buy a house. You can buy a house. So don't sit on your right.
All right, talking about financing, what financial challenges do women face when trying to buy homes, such as access to credit or home? Or what do you think the bank, like a microfinance institution or private investors, can better support women aspiring their own property?
Well, the financial institutions are open to every Nigerian, including the women. So it's for women not to feel like they are left out of it.
Okay.
Just go and go and get what you're supposed to get as a citizen of Nigeria. But we try to, in WINCON, that's the Women in Construction, we're advocating for women to own houses. What we do is we give them the information that is already there that they may not have.
Okay.
So go to the Federal Mortgage Bank. Maybe you have you be in a cooperative, belong to a cooperative. When you belong to a cooperative, it makes home ownership easier.
Yeah, great.
Okay, so I've met someone who spoke to me about the home ownership and talked to me about the credit facilities, just like you've mentioned, and how the provisions have been put in. I'm looking at women who don't do the salary earning job where you can access those credit facilities. As WINCON, like you mentioned, you're advocating for women to own their own homes and have a roof over their head. So how do you make provisions for women who really want to own a home but don't have that installmental plans that they can pay through what's it called, salary or mortgage or something that can help them? So how do you advocate for them to understand, or are there other provisions to help them put in the 1 naira, 2 naira they have to gradually get the amount they're looking for to buy a home for themselves?
Yes, thank you very much. Now for the people who are not on salaries, that are not able to have automatic deductions into the National Housing Funds, that's where we advise that they should belong to a cooperative, because you really can't do it by yourself easily.
True.
So you belong to a cooperative and you contribute. You contribute towards your home ownership, because you have to pay the price. You have to pay the price somehow. So you belong to a cooperative and you do your due diligence, do your contributions, and sooner or later, you'll be able to own the homes that you desire.
Okay, so I want to talk about the cultural gaps. There's a whole lot of cultural gaps, customary and religious practices that seem to stare us in the face, the reality for women. Despite the law, women still face cultural barriers, attitude from families, expectations affecting women's ability to own homes. Yes, you've mentioned the law, you've mentioned the provision through cooperatives, which is good for one who is actually exposed. I'll use the context of exposed and understands her rights and where she should stand tall. But for the cultural gaps for a woman who doesn't have this understanding, who is not properly guided, but had the opportunity to have a spouse who had the provisions of all of these things, and she's supposed to get to have it, of course, train the man's children, her children as well.
Exactly.
And then there are these realities staring at her in the face, in the gaps. So how do you advocate for women? How do you prep them in scenarios like this?
Come again with the question.
Okay, so I'm asking, in your association, in your group where you advocate for women's ownership of homes, so with the reality of cultural gaps, where there's a conflict between relatives, despite the laws, despite your advocacy for women who don't earn salaries, who do businesses to belong to cooperatives, how do you guide them towards scenarios like that brings in the cultural differences for them? For instance, they are not exposed in the context, like I said, but they were married or in partnership with someone who nurtured them, and they have those homes where they so stay back and have their children live with them, and they're limited because of the cultural differences. How do you guide them through that part when they are faced with such challenges?
Okay, I mean challenges of when their husbands pass on,
yes,
and then they're faced with being thrown out of their homes.
Exactly. So how's advocacy going in that aspect for women?
Okay, so what we're doing is we're educating them to at least know that, you have to have things in place, meaning that with your husband, your properties it should be clear to everybody that you have a stake, that you have made a contribution. Your name should be on the property. Your relative should know that you are part of this home. So nobody can come and push you out of it when your husband dies, but you need it to be in writing. You need it to be documented. Okay. So that means, your name has to be on the document.
Okay.
And so that's what we are advising people to make sure this is done. And even the men, we are telling the men too, because I'm sure no man wants the family, the children to be thrown out of their home after they are gone. So the thing, what we're advocating, men, make sure that your women's names, your wife's names are on the documents, are on the property documents, so that no matter what happens, the labor that you are put into acquiring those homes will not just go to a relative. So that's what we do in terms of preparing them to prevent, that situation. And then when it does happen, we also have the legal system in place. Okay. So the social welfare, the women, the Federation of Women Lawyers, they are there to to support.
So there's this concern. Men will tell you the world is evolving. There's a lot happening with the mindsets. I was having a conversation with a few friends, and we go for weddings. You see one excited, people bless the weddings and all that. But they tell you there's an evolving trend. I'm an advocate for a good home, but they tell you people prep their minds towards divorce issues.
Yes.
So there's that picture in the mind of, and so some men tend to be skeptical of naming their partners as what they call it right now.
Society stigma.
The stigma that comes with it. That I might end up giving her the next thing or something. I'm just trying to put in the right word. But there's always this fear not to name her next of kin. So there's one prayer, let's let them not just go, they try to give it to their siblings. In such scenario, I'm talking about your advocacy for women now in your field. What do you advise these women who there's a bridge of trust at some point? I don't know if it's fear of tomorrow, but there's always that mindset with some people. I'm not saying generally. Some people have that mindset, because this was a conversation that came up and it popped out, and I was amazed. I was like, do people really think in this like this. So when women are married into a home, or the both parties, both gender get married, and they have this scenario where it's a man or a woman. Well, I know our focus is women now. How would the women scale through? I know you've mentioned laws guiding them, provisions of all this, and advocacy for them to navigate through that phase, because it's a traumatizing phase for anyone. I don't pray, even my enemy, to have such kind of scenario, because you look at the trauma of how you've been able to build wealth, build a home, because it's very much in a house and a home. We're talking about the home front now. There's sweat, there's sacrifice, there's a whole lot of love, compassion, and then the partner certainly goes off, and then you're faced with people who should be the ones to comfort you, throwing you under the bus. So I don't know why people have that mindset where they have a bridge of trust. So being in the real estate business, what's your take to women who are experts or women who have their financial strength to own a home? What's your advice to them in such scenarios to play, I don't know, find a safe space or something that can be like a backup for them? That's where I'm driving at. How do you advocate for such things for women, basically? Because we want women to be empowered and own their own space.
All right, a follow-up to that question before we call it a wrap on this segment. Your your association, WINCO, that's Women in Construction, how do they help other female organizations or community groups to achieve properties of their own?
Thank you for the question. Yes, we encourage women to, to go and make moves and actually get their homes. Because, like I said, it is something that is a right for every Nigerian. Okay. But some people don't have the information. So, like I said, it's just something you have to plan for, just like anything. Because getting a home, it's a project.
Okay.
It's a project. So you have to work for it. You have to plan for it. And we tell them the way to go about it. Some we say, okay, you have to get into this cooperative. And those who are already working and they have salaries, they're able to contribute to the National Housing Fund. It's even easier for them. So you do the contributions, and in due season you'll be able to own your own home, but you must do the work.
Okay, amazing. Thank you so much. It's been an amazing time speaking with you on women and home ownership, empowering women through property ownership. For us, is a great conversation to bring in the front burner. I've been speaking with architect Ernestina there, where she has given us her thoughts to how the law can be put in place for women to understand their rights, their stability, their financial strength to own a home and have a roof over their head, not looking at the cultural differences, the gap that limits women to own a space, and looking at the African culture where there's always the drag for women to own a home space. But women, we're saying, go out, get your rights, and stand tall, because you earn it and you need to live in that home space. Sure. Well, it's the Women's World. We'll be right back after this timeout. Please stay with us.
Very good evening and welcome to another exciting edition of Big Talk. Tonight on the program,
as always, it's a pleasure to have you join us here on Global Morning. I am Uyi Alpo.
You know how we do it on Social Post Extra, bringing you all the...
On the desk this evening, we have very topical issues to discuss, and of course...
Welcome to your parliamentary program, The Parliament.
Peaceful and joyful home doesn't happen by chance. It is built on...
Women can rise beyond traditional boundaries to claim their rightful place as
Very numerous committee, about more than 12 committees.
Festify is a program that comes to you once in a week at about this time where we look into issues and discuss them. It gives you the opportunity to...
World News in United
Welcome
Nigeria.
to Entertainment Circle. And trust me, today you're about to get entertained.
Hello everyone and welcome to the program Talk Sports here on Global Television.
Talk Zone is that platform where we bring young and talented artists.
Stay tuned, stay inspired, stay with Global Television on DSTV Channel 365, on Star Times Channel 276.
Welcome back. It's still Women's World on Global Television, and it's here. We've been talking a whole lot about women owning their homes, and we had our amazing guest, architect Ernestina, and who gave us the breakdown to the laws guiding women to own their own property and be homeowners through the credit facilities given to and through corporate bodies that can help women who can't do this on their own stand tall and own a home. Well, I just want to play us around us that women in Nigeria have full legal rights. That's what we need to understand, to buy, inherit, and own properties. The Constitution protects the rights, and the Supreme Court has ruled that no custom can stop a woman from inheriting property, but many women still struggle due to cultural practices, meaning the fight is no longer about legality but implementation. So that's to tell you that women need to understand their space, understand how the flow is around owning a property, and we want to hope that with our conversation today that women understand. Kike, you saw our guest, and then you heard from her perspective. So for you as a woman, what do you see cultural barriers for you?
For me, I don't see any cultural barriers. I have my money, I get my house, I get my land. No cultural, as in, cultural barrier can't hold me from getting my own home. It can't stop me from having my own property.
After you work for it.
I work for it. It's my sweat. It's my money. So, I can do whatever thing I want to do with my money. No cultural barrier. Please excuse me.
Okay, so the law has covered you right now.
Yes, so. The law has covered me.
So Kike is here saying the law has covered her, so nothing stops her from owning her home space, and we look forward to more women who have the means to own their homes, jump at it. And we say kudos to women, because I always like to talk about the issue of balancing when it comes to the gender issue, whether being a male or a female. But let's move on to our next segment, because it's time to tell you a lot happening. Let's turn our attention to the fascinating conversation that's playing right now about love, commitment, and modern values. We ask the Gen Z women and marriage. Let's talk about them. Marriage today, women are obsessed with the rings, and a lot of people are asking the questions. This really is a priority shifting and career ambitions to changing perceptions of love and independence. We'll explore all of this, but Kike will take us on that ride and tell us how that is panning out in the world today.
Actually, joining us via Zoom is an expert relationship coach, marriage counselor, founder, the Woman in Me Initiative, Pastor Buchi Onu. Good afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon. I hope you can hear me clearly. It's good to be here again.
Thank you so much for being part of this program.
You're welcome.
We're truly honored to have you. If you can hear us loud and clear, there's a whole lot happening in this conversation, especially with the changing ideas around relationships and love. There's a whole lot happening, and we want to get your perspective with what you think as a relationship expert who talk to people on a daily, if you can hear us. Talk to us about the Gen Z. There's a whole lot around. Do they really genuinely have interest in the marriage? Or is just about the glamour, the lifestyle? I'm a married woman, and there is the ring, the diamond ring, that flows with this mindset. Please talk to us about that.
Wow, thank you so much for this question. Actually, the Gen Z woman...
I can barely hear you. I don't know if you're still there with us. Let's get to while we're trying to get Buchi to jump in on that conversation. We'll quickly take this break, and when we come back, we'll tell you more happening about the Gen Zs and the realities in marriage. We call it modern day marriages. I don't understand what English to use. But let's take this break. We'll be right back. It's good to have you back. It's still Women's World, and we still have Buchi Onu, the marriage expert, to speak to us on this trend of conversation. Earlier I was asking you, I said there's a whole lot happening around marriage and the Gen Zs We have a lot of young people who are feeling the trend of what is happening in the social media space and tend to take advice and flow with what they see. So we want to understand, are today's women still obsessed with the ring they wear or interested in the marriage itself, flowing from the diamond ring? Because that's the one thing we want to hear. I'm engaged, that's the ring. So talk to us about it.
Exactly. Can you hear me clearly now?
Yeah, loud
Yes,
and
we
clear.
can hear you.
Okay, that's better now. Okay, well, the truth is that the Gen Z woman is not like the millennial woman. She is a bold woman, she's confident, she's not afraid to speak her truth, to air her opinion. She doesn't believe in silence, okay? She's a woman that was raised, you know, in the digital era. You know, right from birth and up till now, you know, she's exposed to a lot of information, a lot of happenings around her, and she sees the need to always air her view, and she does not bother about what society thinks. The Gen Z woman is a woman that wants her happiness. As far as she's happy, she is okay. So marriage for her must be fulfilling. Marriage for her shouldn't be a place of torture, shouldn't be a place of abuse, shouldn't be a place she has to endure a lot, where she has to lose her sanity. You know, it must be a place of upliftment, a place where she grows. And when it gets to that point, or rather, because she sees marriage in that perspective, in that light, she doesn't really care about what the society thinks. There is no, it's not when, it is now if. It's not when I get married like the millennial. You know, then, back then, you know, women will always see marriage as a necessity. For the Gen Z woman, marriage is an option. It's optional, and she must be fully ready. So she doesn't really care if, you know, what the society thinks. She's not pressured. So I don't think women of this generation, the Gen Z generation, are really interested about what the society thinks, whether they are in marriage or not. They are after their happiness. And because they want to be happy in marriage, they seek empowerment before marriage. They seek independence. They seek emotional maturity. Their choices of a life partner is, you know, they clearly set out rules and regulations, goals that must be met by whosoever they are going to spend the rest of their life with. So they are not under any bias of what society thinks, but rather what would make them happy. So that's who she is.
All right, Buchi, a lot of people say Gen Z women are becoming too independent. Do you think their financial empowerment is influencing how they perceive relationship and long-term commitment?
Okay, well, of course, yes, because a Gen Z woman, like I said earlier, is a woman that wants to be independent. She's a woman that wants to speak out, wants to be heard. And for you to be heard and for your voice to be heard, to be amplified, you need to be empowered, you know, empowered in all ramifications, emotionally empowered, financially empowered. And because of this, of course, it definitely affects their timeline, you know, getting married, because now they are focused on readiness. Am I ready emotionally, financially, and otherwise? Am I mature enough to handle, you know, what marriage is going to bring? You know, the women of those days, the millennial era, you know, it's all about a necessity. It's all about, okay, societal expectations. This is what is expected of me as a woman from in my early 20s or my late teenage years. I should be married. But the Gen Z woman is not looking at it from that angle. She embraces marriage at the point she sees and she knows that she is ready for marriage. So it may not be the time frame. If at 30 she's not ready, then she's fine being unmarried. If at 35 she knows she's fully ready, then she's ready to embrace it. Because for her, it's about, you know, perfection. Though there's no perfect marriage, but at least she should find fulfillment and happiness in marriage. And this boils to the fact that she has to be ready. So there is no time frame for the Gen Z woman. She is ready when she is, you know, empowered in all ramifications.
Okay, I like the fact that you mentioned that a woman is ready, especially Gen Z, when she can tell herself, when she has seen the things she has seen for herself. But there's a narrative
Yeah.
that the Gen Z wants partnership, not hierarchy. And then how true is that the younger women prefer equality-based relationships than traditional marriage rules? Because let's look at the realities of today. There's a whole lot happening, and women tend to stand and make a standpoint to decisions. So is that a challenge following the trend or the mindset the Gen Z have when they go into marriage?
Well, I don't think that's a challenge. And even if we see it as a challenge, it should be a positive one. Because marriage should be, a place where both parties should be heard. Even from the scriptural perspective, it's a place of oneness, okay? And you cannot achieve oneness when one feels suppressed, one feels intimidated, okay? So there is this balance that needs to be created. And of course, that empowerment, that financial readiness of the Gen Z woman is what is necessary for this. We don't really care how the society sees it. We want the woman to be happy. We want the men or the man to be happy in marriage. And to achieve this is not really about societal expectations, the stigmatizations that comes with the fact that you have a wife that is financially empowered and maybe she's controlling, maybe she's not respectful anymore, the fears and all of that. We are all looking at it from the inside, especially those who are reasonable and people like me that have been in the counseling world for, profession for a very long time. We understand the balance it will bring to the home with a woman who is mature, empowered financially and otherwise. So whatever the society sees or things, don't forget we are coming from a patriarchal society where the man has always been seen to have a say. The woman shouldn't be heard. She should only be seen, have places in the kitchen. So to break these norms and cultural values and ideologies is not going to be an easy walk. You get the point? It's not going to be easy. So, but I'm happy we are getting there. And people should begin to see financial empowerment and emotional maturity for the woman as a basic and a goal for, a stable marriage, a stable relationship, and a fulfilled mother and a wife, because she cannot play these roles if she's not, empowered in all areas, and of course, financially and emotionally.
Okay, so I get a picture, but I'm always asking, what's your perspective to submission? Because submission seems to be one conversation where the millennials see the Gen Z is not willing to submit to their spouse in marriage. But I always speak from my part. I said, if you love your partner, because it's about love, is what you give that you get in return. So what's your perspective when the millennials tell the Gen Zs you're not being submissive, you're not understanding the role of submission compared to their time in marriage?
Well, submission needs to... Yeah, I get that, and that's what we are dealing with in our today's world. A woman is going through a whole lot, and you're talking about submission. A woman complains about what she's going through in her marriage, and you're talking about what did you do to your husband? What did you do to your husband that he hit you? What did you do to your husband that he cheated on you? That is the millennial point of view. That's how they were raised to see marriage. But it's not so. I always believe that submission doesn't have little or nothing to do with financial empowerment. It has a lot to do with character. It has a lot to do with character. I repeat, it's a behavioral issue. If a child is not raised well, there will not be respect. Respect has a lot to do with submission. And I don't want to see submission from the African point of view, which means submitting, everything about your voice, your opinion, your choices, your freedom. No, in your pain, submit. When you're tortured, submit. That is not what submission is. The Bible talks about submitting to one another. The Bible talks about a man loving his wife as Christ loved the church, that Christ laid his life down for the church. That is a high level of what sacrifice. So in a stable and healthy marriage, both must submit. So the Gen Z, I don't think we should You know, I understand where you're coming from, the millennials saying you don't submit because you have your own money. It has nothing to do with the money of, you know, the empowerment that the Gen Z woman craves. No, it has a lot to do with character. And that's why I tell parents, raise your boy child and your girl child well. They should be able to respect people's emotions, you know, people's opinions. There should be boundaries. And this has a lot to do with respect and submission in marriage.
All right, amazing. So there's a whole lot happening. Kike has something she wants to throw
Interesting
to you.
interesting to see how mindset, exposure, and environment shape these views. Let's look at the foundation behind some of these attitudes. Parenting is powerful. How much do upbringing and family patterns influence the way Gen Z women approach love and marriage today?
Okay, wow. I would like to say that parents have a lot of role to play, and they should pay attention. Pay attention because the Gen Z woman is a woman that is exposed to a lot. She's in a digital era. She's gonna be seeing a lot online. She's on the social media, she's on the internet. She has smartphones, access to smartphones, and she meets with kids every day that has access to smartphones. I remember there was a time when I didn't let my daughters have access to phone. I have a Gen Z. My first child is a Gen Z, so I know what I go through with her. So they didn't have access. Yeah, they didn't have access. I didn't let her have access to phone, but she ends up going to a school that every other child in the class has access to phone. You know, she goes to the church children's department, other children have access, okay? So what is your child listening to? Sometimes you seize these phones and your child goes out there and is infiltrated with information that is not healthy for her growth, her development, the way she sees life, the way she handles issues, and all of that. So as parents, we must be careful because the Gen Z generation is a generation that is exposed to, you know, the social media space. What is your child listening to? What is your child hearing? Early in life, you need to begin to train them, the boy child, the girl child, begin to prepare them, not just for marriage, for adulthood. You know, we talk a lot about marriage, forgetting that first and foremost, your child is a human being, your child is your child, and must incorporate and behave the way he or she is expected to behave, you know, from the parents. Your child is an adult and should be a good citizen to start with. You notice a lot of problems people pass through in marriage are, you know, problems, issues that have not been handled by the parents. You have not trained your child to be a reasonable adult, a responsible adult, an adult with a good behavior. So when we target that, you notice that a lot of issues the Gen Z generation will face in marriage will be drastically reduced.
Okay.
You're teaching your child responsibility. Yeah, you're teaching your child a whole lot. So there's a lot of work parents need to do to be able to.
I know if I allow you, you keep talking on this because this is your area of strength and
exactly.
And you're so passionate each time you talk about it.
So passionate about it.
So let's quickly talk about this issue. You talked about parenting and how they should understand their role, but let's look at the issue of fear. Fear is another factor where parents are skeptical in most cases, so they want to over-pamper the child. And when the spouse-to-be comes, they tell you, this is my daughter, this is my son, this is and all that. But how has that also played out for young women when they get to the space of the millennials who have practiced this? Because there's this concept of soft life. I want everything easy and going. But in all of this, there should also be the part of prioritizing comfort and emotional safety. So I'm looking at this balance. Soft life, the fear of getting to responsibility, or starting a life of the adulthood, just like you identified.
I haven't seen what the older women has gone through
in their life.
In the past.
So they are always worried because the older women have gone through a traumatized marriage in some cases. So the fear comes to play because all they want to see is soft life, comfort zone, but there's a reality for them to face.
Okay, thank you for that. The issue is always, like I had said earlier, you must create that balance. You must create that balance. I know you want your child as a parent to have access to the basic needs of life.
Okay.
Have that soft life, like we call it. Anything your child needs, you will be there to provide. Or you need to know as a parent that you're raising a girl child or a boy child that is going to face the world. You're not going to be there with that child all through. Okay, and the world is a mixed society. The world is a mixed society where you meet both the millennial, the Gen X, the Gen Z, and people with different mindsets and beliefs. So it's important to make your child understand what to expect. Yes, at home here, this is your safe place. This is your safe heaven. Anything you want, mommy provides, daddy provides. But know that very soon you'll become an adult. You're going to meet this type of people out
and you
there.
want to provide.
But if this happens, yes. Now, the truth is that is why I always tell parents, engage in conversations with your child. The more you discuss with your child, the more you understand, you expose your child to certain things, about life, certain behavioral, and you notice the lapses in your child's behavior, the fears, the uncertainties your child is experiencing, and know where to come. So there needs to be this balance because you are.
Okay,
society,
like I said,
and that child cannot.
Okay, so I know you were going to drive this very well because it's your field, but time is not our friend and you need to run. Thank you so much, Buchi. It's always a delight having you join us in the Women's World. Like we say, we always keep you coming because the world is evolving, a lot is changing, and we want people to have the right mindsets, the right narrative, or the right picture or storytelling when it comes to building themselves into adulthood, especially as women, to know how they can stand tall and maintain their steeds, if it's a word.
Thank you so much, Buchi, for pouring so much wisdom into today's conversation. It's been refreshing, honest, and enlightening. And to everyone watching at home, thank you for staying with us. Until next time, keep growing, keep loving, and keep becoming the best version of yourself. I am Kike Lomo Okere, and my ever vibrant co-host.
I am Annie Patrick. Always a delight on Women's World. We'll see you on the next episode. Thank you so much, Buchi. Thank you so much, Ernestina Ford, that came up earlier with us. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us on the program. See you on the next episode.
Thank you. Bye-bye.